Why not? No more kids. Melody Baldwin is with us on the satellite from Indianapolis, Indiana. This is no theoretical situation for Miss Baldwin. You can hear me all right, Melody?
Yes, I can.
Okay. We are here in New York, as you know, with your attorney, Michael Donahoe,
Yes, sir.
who misspelled his last name, but we'll let him get away with that. Let me see Michael. There you are. And to Michael's left is the judge who sentenced you, Miss Baldwin, from Indianapolis, Indiana. This is Superior Court Judge of the Criminal Division for Marion County, Indiana, Roy S. Jones. Now, let me just get this straight. First of all, you should know, for the record, that Miss Baldwin poisoned her own child. Having given him psychotropic drugs, her 4-year-old son, Joshua, did not survive. After giving birth, you gave birth following these incidents to another son on October 2nd of this year. Have I got all this right, Miss Baldwin?
Yes, you do.
What'd you say from the bench, Judge, regarding sentencing?
Melody asked for me to consider a mitigating factor that she was going to give a child up for adoption.
That would be the child born after... okay,
yes.
I got it.
After I heard that, I suggested to her, since she recognized that she need not have this child, perhaps she need not have any children, and that she would want to submit to sterilization.
Now, when you said you suggested she did, this was not a mandate.
It was a suggestion, yes.
So it didn't have the full judicial weight of the bench. It had rather the judge's personal recommendation. Can we put it that way? Are you comfortable with that?
That's the way I put it.
Okay. I assume you wanted to put it that way because you don't want necessarily this to be interpreted as encoded in law, huh?
What I did was legally correct. In other words, I had a good legal sound basis for making my recommendation.
Right.
It's not something that was prohibited.
I understand. Melody, when the judge suggested that you be sterilized, I assume you thought about this a while. Is that so?
I was shocked at first, and then I realized that he was probably right, that I shouldn't have any more children, and I realized that.
And then what? You talked about it?
Well, I spent almost 4 months in the hospital, but, you know, I talked with the people I could talk to, and talked, of course, with Michael. And it just, I still don't remember the actual doing it, so I'm searching for answers.
When you say 4 months in the hospital, do you mean a psychiatric hospital?
Well, it was 2.5 weeks on a regular maternity floor, and then over to the psychiatric hospital, and then over to Wizard, another psychiatric hospital.
I understand. Now, on the issue of the discussion regarding your, and I assume sterilization here means a tubal ligation, huh?
Yes, sir, it does.
And you've had that tubal, have you not?
Yes, sir, I have.
Did this surgery ensue immediately on the occasion following the birth of your child?
I'm sorry.
Did you have the tubal ligation right after you had the baby?
It was the day after.
I see. You were sentenced by Judge Jones to 20 years in jail.
Yes.
How's that sit with this audience, ladies and gentlemen of the jury? Well, arrogant as I may be to argue Miss Baldwin's case in front of her attorney, since there's only one letter separating our two last names, she had to have taken leave of her sentence to do her senses to do this to her child. Where is your heart? Who could poison their own kid and be sane? You want her in the slammer for 20 years? Most of you do. Should her sentence be reduced because she accommodated the judge's non-binding suggestion that she get sterilized? Would you reduce her sentence because she did that? What?
She said she should have psychiatric help.
She does.
Well, then she should remain under wraps until they... What was in her background to lead her to...
Oh, so that's going to be important to you, is it, ladies and gentlemen of the jury? You want to know about her?
I would like to know that, because there are a lot of people out there whose children are in danger because of their
Yes.
inability to handle crying and just simple things.
Yes, that's right.
How will she ever forget what she did? Won't it always come back to haunt her?
Probably would. I assume you'll never be able to forget this, Miss Baldwin.
The judge could not sentence me any more than I've already sentenced myself.
All right, you should know that Miss Baldwin's 20-year sentence was reduced to 10 years. You feel good about that? What about the sentence of the child? Michael, weigh in here. Attorney at law, Michael Baldwin. I'm sorry, Michael Donahue for Melody Baldwin. You would say what now that you're presiding over this jury?
I would say, first of all, that you had a graphic on the screen that I want to interpose an objection to, if I could. It said Melody Baldwin murdered her son. I don't want to get too technical. She was not convicted of murder. She was convicted of child neglect, and that's a very important distinction to me.
Yes, it is. It is in law. It is in law. Why, listen, this is still America. Wait a minute.
The murder charge was dropped. Now, all of the psychiatric evidence that's been compiled, and there are volumes of it, indicates that Melody's problem stems from the parent-child relationship, an inability to deal with that. The reason her sentence was reduced was because she has taken an extraordinary step to demonstrate that she recognizes her problem and that it'll never occur again. She doesn't represent a threat to anyone else's children. She's never been convicted of any other crime. She's 30 years old and has no prior record. So in recognition and, in recognition of the fact that she went ahead and eliminated the possibility of this type of crime occurring again, the sentence was reduced. I think that's far superior to incarcerating her for the full 20 years and then having her get out and perhaps represent a threat to society.
Yes.
Why wasn't psychiatric counseling suggested rather than sterilization?
Ask the judge.
It's recommended also. Psychiatric counseling is only going to benefit her.
Yeah. Have you been, your bones have been jumped on, have they, by the National Organization for Women? Who's upset with you, Judge?
That organization is, yes.
Because,
Why? Because they like to jump on these little catchwords that come up.
Like?
Abortion, sterilization.
It's a buzzword.
Buzzword, exactly.
All right, but let's put it the
Let
other
me tell you who's here. Garrett Simpson. Now listen to this. You are a public defender with the Office of Public Defenders in Phoenix, Arizona.
Maricopa County.
You're in the case of Deborah Ann Forster. Did you read about her? She abandoned an 18-month-old and a 6-month-old child in her Tucson apartment for 3 days. The babies lived after serious dehydration, almost fatal. So now she is swept up in the court system. You're her public defender. I assume she's not a wealthy woman.
She is not.
She was pregnant in jail, and after releasing the child for adoption, the judge gave her probation under the condition that she use birth control for the rest of her childbearing years. She got pregnant again. So?
So I didn't hear that. I'm sorry.
Didn't she get pregnant again?
Oh, yes. The baby's due in April.
Now, wait a minute. Now, the judge said, I can't prove this woman didn't use birth control. Insist, right, and didn't take Polaroids of her taking the pill. So he says, since this is not enforceable, I can't punish her for being pregnant. With us so far? Okay.
Right.
What's your grievance with Judge Jones's decision, Mr. Simpson?
Well, my grievance is the idea that this is a cause célèbre of the National Organization of Women. If we look at, let's turn the situation on its head. What if we had a law that said every man who didn't pay child support was going to get a vasectomy or have to wear condoms? You like that?
Great idea.
All right, but let's be real.
Yeah. You may be appealing to the wrong audience here. But, Mr. Simpson, sir, we didn't get you because you weren't used to this kind of
but let's be real.
hostility. Let them have it. Go ahead.
Let's be real. A law like that would never see the light of day. And the scofflaws who don't pay their child support and have absolutely no regard for their children, who intentionally and with the coolest calculation ignore their obligations to their children by not paying their child support are 1,000 times more culpable than Deborah Forster ever was.
But the death of a child and the physical harm to a child is 1,000 times worse than failure
That's
to pay
true, Phil.
But
But
the
on the other hand,
distinction-
do we protect children by preventing their conception?
The distinction between his example and our case is he's talking about a situation where a law would force men to get vasectomies. Nobody forced Melody to do anything in this case. It was
What
done
if
of
you
her
got
own
a cut
free
in your
will.
child support by having a vasectomy?
If that were his own decision, I think it's a better alternative than putting the man in prison for 20 or 30 years. If you have a guy who's had 6 kids by 6 different women and never paid a nickel worth of support on any of them.
You'd be willing to vasectomize this guy, would you?
No, I would say it would be to his advantage to have the option between a long felony sentence and vasectomy. If he were
So you support giving him the choice?
I think it's to his advantage to have that choice, not necessarily to society's.
In the larger
but-
sense, though, what kind of choice is it when it's a choice made under compulsion? When the choice is submit to this voluntarily as a kind of mitigation or face horrendous consequences. That's not consent at all.
But a long prison sentence isn't voluntary either
Right.
for these people. They have no choice at all in that.
Right. Now, don't mix up your cases here. We're throwing a lot at you here. Garrett Simpson is the public defender for Deborah Ann Forster. You've just heard him express his misgiving about these kind of asexual sentences. You know, and incidentally, castration is removal of the testicles. Do I have that?
That's right.
As far as I know.
Well, let's just, that'll be the last time we'll mention anything like that on our program. Which removes not only reproductive capacity, but also libido. True? You can't have sex if you don't have any testicles.
I've not tried it.
Not true, not true. You can be chemically fortified.
So you have to take, then, your hormone supplication.
Sure.
In order, a hormone supplemental dose in order to, I see. So you could erect without testicles if you were on hormone replacement therapy.
That's my understanding. I have a problem with the sterilization for that reason, Phil.
Now, let me tell you here, Stephen Henry is attorney from Greenville, South Carolina. Listen to this. You represent Roscoe Brown, who, along with 2 other convicted rapists, was given an option to be castrated rather than 30 years in prison. This was a particularly brutal gang rape in a motel. 3 males, 1 victim. They caught him. They sentenced him and to 30 years. And at the beginning of this litigation, there was a suggestion that if they were castrated, they might be able to go free. Is that right?
Not suggested, sentenced. Option was put into the sentence.
Right.
They were all given the option to be castrated or do the 30 years.
All right. So 1 or more of these defendants went back to jail and started thinking about this.
Right.
And one of whom, your client is married, is he not?
Right, Mr. Brown.
And he and his wife said, okay.
That's when they came to me and they said, we want to have the castration done.
And then?
Made a motion to have it done. The judge said no. Went to the Supreme Court. They found it unconstitutional.
Tell me how they, on what law did
Public
it?
policy, plus we have a 8th Amendment version in the South Carolina Constitution. Cruel and
Cruel and
punishment.
unusual. But you argued that 30 years in prison, it's cruel and unusual.
I argued this. I argued that the castration was unconstitutional, and since he opted for it, he should be put on probation. The problem with the sentence originally was it was a bad sentence. It was bad law, I think, like the sterilization as well. And the problem that we have with that is that you throw into body part sterilization into the criminal process, it becomes part of plea bargaining.
I see. I'll give you 1 testicle if you'll drop me 10 years on the...
Now, exactly right. Phil, if I can tell you one example, since the Roscoe Brown case, I had another case in the same county where a young man who had not a very serious offense, a sexual offense, not a very serious one, who prior to trial did it himself, did his own castration, and came to court hoping for a lesser sentence.
Yeah. Well, as a matter of fact, before we leave Miss Baldwin, and my deal with Miss Baldwin's attorney is that she will take her leave in about 5 minutes. Before you do, Miss Baldwin, we should say this. First of all, you are not yet imprisoned. Is that so?
That's so.
What's the status now? When do you go to? When are you scheduled to? I've got your judge here. I could ask him, but I'll ask you. What is the duration of your freedom?
I do not know. That's the hard part of it.
Your attorney says in about a week. Miss Baldwin, you have really been through more in the last several months than most of us in a lifetime. You've dealt with the agony of the loss of your own child, There is a suicide attempt in your own background. You've clearly been a very, very troubled woman. Are you seeing the light here now? I mean, in terms of your own physical and emotional well-being, are you putting it together, or is it getting worse?
Well, I saw the light when I gave up my baby. I realized that sometimes when you love something so much, you have to let it go so it can grow, and that's why I let go of him. But I still don't know. I still don't remember things that happened that night or anything, so I'm still searching for answers in order to accept it myself.
I assume that the psychotropic drugs about which we spoke were yours. You were under doctor's care at the time. Is that so?
Well, I've been going to, it's like a medical social worker since I was about 18. It's not an actual psychiatrist. He's not an actual psychiatrist.
Uh-huh. You're 29.
30.
Are you single?
Yes, I am.
Mm-hmm. Well, Judge, let me make the bleeding heart argument to you here and maybe see how we can do here. This woman is no threat to anyone, with the very possible exception of her own children. Without any criminal record, who engaged in behavior that is truly bizarre and some might say psychotic. And she has just, at your suggestion, voluntarily deprived herself of the opportunity of ever having a child again. In an age of crowded jails, would the law tolerate, and why wouldn't you have the flexible freedom from the bench to release this woman on her own recognizance, under probation circumstances, all the while remembering that she was not convicted of murder?
At this point in time, I've already tempered justice somewhat to a certain degree from the standpoint of bringing the 20-year to the 10-year sentence.
So you've demonstrated you're not a granite hang 'em judge.
Oh, I'm not so sure I'd say that.
You're tough, are you?
I just feel that I'm fair.
Do you feel it was worth it, Melody, the sterilization procedure?
If I had it to do over, I'm not sure what I would have done, because the truth is I wish someday maybe I could have had more children. But I could never give up another child, and I could never have anything like this happen again.
And you don't have any doubt in your mind that you have walked through this terrible valley that you had to be in order to give this medication to your first child. You think you're well now?
I don't think I'm well. I mean, as far as, you know, I still go through very deep depression and thoughts of hurting myself, but as far as ever hurting a child or anybody again, it would not happen.
Do you have any doubt that you were mentally ill at the time of this incident?
I would have had to been. Josh and I were very, very, very close, and he was 5 years of my life.
What?
The way I see it, I don't have any children myself yet, but I know when you go to buy a car, you go to buy a house, your responsibility level is checked by your credit history and your work history. That isn't checked when you go to have a child. Anyone can choose to do that. I don't know if I agree with the 20-year sentence. I agree with the castration and the sterilization.
That sounds like you're sexist. You want to cut his off,
No,
but
no,
not
just
her.
the sterilization also for the woman. I just feel that how many chances are you going to give someone? I mean, if they do it the first time, what's to say they're not going to do it again? If it does happen again, then do you do it? I mean, there's 2 lives
Do you have
gone.
any grievance at all? Do you have any misgiving of the kind that Mr. Simpson has put on the record here? Isn't this the most personal invasion the state can make? You want a guy with a brown shirt to decide what to do with your fallopian tube?
You know, it must be a deep psychiatric problem. That's the only thing that could that could have happened to these people that do this. I mean, I can feel for them, but in the same sense, who's to stop them from doing it again? She can't honestly say it's not going to happen.
But the fertility of a...
people's rights away all the time.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Let's get you in here, Lori. You're most patient. You are also from Phoenix, and you were the parole officer for Deborah Ann Forster, the young woman who left her children in the apartment. Here's her parole officer.
Probation officer.
I'm sorry, probation officer. You wanted to say.
Well, the state takes people's rights away all the time, and if a young woman proves by her actions that she's not capable of parenting children, what is wrong with taking that right away, at least temporarily,
Physically.
to give her a chance to mature?
Now, when you say temporarily, do you mean with, for example, pills?
She was not ordered to take the pill because she had some problems with high blood pressure.
Well, what was she ordered to do? Barrier method?
She was ordered to find the best method suitable for her and her husband. She is still married.
Except she's a Roman Catholic. And
A non-practicing Roman Catholic.
and we know how well...
Well, now, how do you feel about this?
Who decides
Jury?
that? Who decides that? Who decides how Catholic someone is?
Just one other thing.
She voiced no objection to artificial birth control.
You're the person who sees these kids
Right.
unattended, don't you?
Right.
Tell me about that.
Well, you know, you go into houses where you see children living in filth. You see them emotionally and physically neglected. You see them not nurtured by mothers who are barely their children themselves. Many of them, they have 4 or 5 children by the time they're 21 years old. Deborah's 18 years old, and this is her 4th pregnancy.
So civil libertarians who argue that this is the state's intrusion is a what? A non-elegant speech to you? Non-eloquent?
Correct. Because you go into a house and you see a child clamoring for the attention that it doesn't get. The way these
And then you
people
see
parent,
that same woman pregnant again.
Right, and these women parent by yelling at their kids or hitting them.
Courts have been considering the fertility of defendants in cases like this as long as there's been child abuse. It's never discussed openly, but it is directly related to the likelihood of future crime. And if they think this person is going to go out and do it again, they give them a long prison sentence. And if you can find an alternative to prison, which is a very destructive resolution to any case at all, then that is certainly to a defendant's advantage. And I think it's ironic and almost inconsistent and bordering on hypocritical for people that would purport to look out for the rights of defendants to say that they shouldn't have this option. It should be taken away, and Big Brother should step in there and say the only way we can handle this case is through prison, and we've decided that's what's best for you. I'm for freedom of choice in this option.
And in this case, your client opted for the choice of sterilization, and it did not earn her her freedom. It only reduced her sentence to half.
Exactly, but the important thing to remember here also, and I do object to the sentence, by the way, but that is not something I'm going to discuss right now. That would be, this is not the proper place for that. But she was not going to be able to have any children anyway in the future because she would have spent the balance of her childbearing years behind bars. So in a sense, she received excellent consideration from the judge for giving up nothing or something that she wasn't going to be able to use again.
What strikes me on that point is that it's not hypocritical at all. You have to look at this client of yours. The first question I'd want to know is, how can a woman with this psychiatric history and under this kind of pressure and this kind of risk of loss of 20 years in prison
make a
an
totally
informed
free,
consent?
unencumbered decision?
Absolutely. How can she consent? Would you like to be the doctor who operated on that woman?
Excuse me, Ms. Baldwin, would you like to respond to that observation?
I didn't really hear
You've
what
been
it said.
asked to make a decision, or a suggestion was made to you at a time when you appear to be at least handicapped in terms of making a free and rational choice because of all the pressure on you at this moment. You've just lost your baby by your own hand, and you've had to give up your second baby, and now you're facing a 20-year prison. You're before the bench, and it's been suggested that maybe you get sterilized. That'll help. At least Mr. Simpson is arguing this is hardly the place to make this kind of sound decision.
Well, I agree with that. I mean, I'm still uneasy about it. I wish I hadn't have done it really sometimes, and then I realized that it was the only way.
Right. Are you eligible for parole? What is your understanding about the nature of your term, your prison term?
I really don't know. I know I got 10 years, and I know that with good time that could be 5 years. But other than that, I don't know anything about parole. I don't know if I'm going to get any counseling or anything like that.
Is that so, Judge?
It's still being worked out right now. I commit her to the Department of Corrections for a 10-year sentence. What occurs after that will be between the Department of Corrections and the Department of Mental Health as far as where she's placed and what type of time credit she'll receive. I can only make recommendations. I have no control over it.
But what is the freedom of choice regarding these agencies? Is she correct? Could she serve 5 years and then be free?
If she just went through the Department of Corrections and did what they call good time in my state, 2 for 1 time, then she'd be eligible for release after that.
In other words, a model prisoner then can double his incarceration time.
Have it.
Have it. All right. All right. Double it in terms of, I get it.
Right.
Okay. Well, Miss Baldwin, I'm obliged to say goodbye to you now. I don't know if anybody has. Do you have one question for this young woman before? What?
Phil, I don't want to subject her.
Well, it's to turn her, just tell her not to answer.
I just think that it's important to show some sort of support or love for this person and say that, you know, like instead of castigating them, saying, well, maybe you can change and hopefully we hope good for you.
You'd like to see. You think she should go to prison at all?
Well, rather than clapping to say, oh, great, she had this horrible sentence, I thought that was really cruel. I mean, you try to help someone along instead of like, all right.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
What happened to mental health? What happened to testing?
To testing?
You know, giving them some psychological backup.
Well, I think they are. I have to break here. I thank you for, let's leave that on the table. We'll pick it up later. Melody, I do thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
And I hope you know that whatever you've heard about audiences in New York, we do have a heart, and we hope the best for you. We certainly don't want your life to be any more complicated than it's already been. And we thank you for at least making a contribution toward raising the curtain on whether or not we want to castrate male sex offenders, and do we want to sterilize women who apparently are being irresponsible in raising their children. And we'll be back in just a moment.
Shortcuts from General Foods.
Hi, I'm Ann West. My chocolate treats start with everyday foods. One step and they're fancy enough for company.
I need a moment in my day. Yes, sir. I've got a Tuesday tattoo. Myself ready. Yes, sir. Thank you. And nothing's like being invisible, and nothing's better for seeing the forest for the trees. And the good to the last drop feeling of Maxwell House, only Maxwell House. That's the good to the last drop feeling of Maxwell House and you.
For my chocolate dip treats, put 3 squares of semi-sweet chocolate in a microwave-safe cup. Melt it high for 1.5 minutes. Dip fresh fruit, dried apricots, nuts, cookies, marshmallows, even pretzels. Let cool on wax paper. Makes entertaining easy and fun.
Shortcuts from General Foods.
The Hawaiian Ono Seafood Sauté. New at Monterey Bay Canners.
Catch the freshness today. Why are you sitting at home?
The people of Hawaii have long understood and cherished handcrafted art. They say the very soul of a craftsman passes through his hands into the art object, and the beauty of hands is important to the Arthritis Foundation. That's why we are pleased to organize Hawaii's premier Christmas craft fair. Bring the family and share in this timeless tradition. Ala Moana Park, Saturday and Sunday, November 19th and 20th, from 9 a.m. till 4 p.m. Great entertainment will be provided as always.
You know, I've seen so many people in the same kind of predicament come to Action Line and get the results. So I said, well, you know, I'm going to try and see what happens. And guess what? Within a week and a half, the stop signs were up.
In just 1 year, Action Line is making a difference.
You feel what? Tell me, why are you confused?
Well, I'm confused because I don't really know whether the sterilization does any good.
Woman leaves her children in an unoccupied apartment, 18 months and 6 months, for 3 days. They find these babies semi-comatose. The babies live. Can the judge tell that woman to get a tubal ligation? What's confusing about that?
I was talking about the other lady that was on, the other young lady that was on. I was
right,
confused between the two cases.
All right, she poisoned her child. She was found guilty of gross child neglect, not to be confused with murder. How do you feel about here? The judge is here. Judge Jones suggested from the bench, suggested a sterilization procedure, and she got it.
That's very difficult. I really don't know. I'm still confused.
All right, we're coming back and giving you an oral quiz at the end of the show.
Where am I going?
You wanted to say.
Oh, yes. Why wasn't she charged with murder?
She was. Reduced on a plea.
Part of a plea bargain, right?
Plea bargain.
Cleve, you don't like plea bargains.
How does this sterilization or birth control help the existing children? She has 2 little children at home. They're telling her to use birth control.
It doesn't.
The 2 boys are in foster care. She signed away her parental rights. Her 3rd child has been adopted.
Well, I'm just not sure that these women aren't a threat to other children. We're saying they're not a threat to their children.
But they're innocent until proven guilty.
Here.
Phil, we're talking about a little boy's life. I mean, 4 years old, and this lady induced poison, and now the little boy's gone. So what are we telling other women in America? I mean, as far as 5 years, or they're sentenced 5 years. Come on, that
You want to send her on more.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, I want to see good, come out of it, but.
Tell him we'll be back.
We'll be back in just a moment.
Executive Chef, Hawaii's fine culinary shop, where you'll find an array of gifts of distinction, serving you the most complete line of Cuisinart in Hawaii. Executive Chef. Special wishes come true at Ford Warehouse.
She can, and he can, they can. Yes, you can. At Fantastic Sam's, afford to look this good. You with pride, style in your hair, doing it right, get a price that is fair. Means you can. At Fantastic Sam's, afford to look this good.
Shock absorbers. Most of you know that worn-out shocks can really affect the ride and safe handling of the car. But did you know that worn shocks can also cause premature wear to your tires? Have your mechanic inspect those shocks and struts before problems occur. And don't forget, Napa shocks and struts come with a lifetime warranty. So, whether you do it yourself or have a professional install new shocks for you, ask for Napa.
In the coolness of a Makapu morning, a brand new day begins at Sea Life Park. Newborn creatures discover their new world. Together, we watch them grow. Throughout the year, Sea Life Park greets the quiet arrival of another special gift. Sea Life Park, part of the joy of life in Hawaii.
Child's Play is filled with special feelings wall to wall, all to delight, discover, and teach. Creative play and learning materials, all at Child's Play. Special wishes come true at Ford Warehouse.
To be part of the audience, write Donahue Tickets, care of NBC, New York, New York, 10112.
Are you there? I'm glad you waited, caller. Go ahead.
Hello?
Yeah.
I just want to know, what good is castration if the guy could still rape? I mean, he could still get, sexually excited, so he could still rape even though he's castrated.
That assumes that rape is a crime of sexual relief, too, and I think it's a crime of violence and aggression. This guy's rage against women is just going to be compounded if he is mutilated like that, and the next crime is going to be an aggravated assault.
Do you want that, Stephen?
I agree.
Let me just say that attorney at law Stephen Henry is from Greenville, South Carolina. You represent Roscoe Brown. Roscoe Brown, who is one of 3 defendants in a rape incident in 1980. They were sentenced in 1983.
Right.
At first, the judge said, "You get castrated, and I won't send you to jail." They went to jail. Later on, one of them said, "Hey, I talked about it with my wife. Go ahead." And then they said no. Here is the defendant about whom we speak, talking about this very issue, Roscoe Brown, South Carolina.
It's for castration, and that was months ago.
This is what?
They're holding it up, not us. We're not contesting whether it's legal or not. But we're just hoping for the best.
To be isolated and not even be able to contribute to, the world whatsoever, I feel is more damaging to me than to undergo castration.
What's the matter?
Well, I think I have the answer.
What is that?
I believe they should be castrated and then sent to the slammer. And then we wouldn't have them around to worry about.
Now, who should be castrated?
Well,
A
the
rapist? Rapist?
The rapist.
How about child abuser?
Yes.
But who's a child abuser?
Definitely.
Is a child abuser a person who, in the most horrible way, imagine mistreats a child, or is a child abuser someone who lets their child wander into the swimming pool? Out in the desert where I live, every year it's a depressing thing over and over again.
Drowning,
Children fall into swimming pools and drown because the parents won't fence them, because it interferes with the view, or they let them die in their car seats.
That's negligence.
Are
That's
those
not child
the
abuse.
state of, what's the difference in the state of mind?
Child's yelling, getting yelled at. You're stupid. I knew when you were born. Will we castrate him?
Well,
Don't castrate him.
But who's to decide? Who's to decide what's abuse and what justifies that kind of remedy? And then we put criminal defendants, and in my case, a child. Remember, there's no turnaround time. While she was yet a child, she became a victimizer of her own children. All right?
How old was she when she abandoned these two
16
children?
or 17.
How much?
17, perhaps, at most.
17 years
She
old.
also had a husband who was 23 years old and who had been told not to leave her alone with those children.
This is the defendant.
Yes, Deborah
this
Forster.
is Deborah Ann Forster.
Her husband had been told not to leave her with those children.
So what? I mean, but, he wasn't charged. The point is, what I hear from the audience is that we're supposed to be the insurers
This
of our
audience
children.
is mad as hell, and they don't want to take it anymore.
All right, but they don't want to.
I'm telling you.
But
I'm not arguing your case.
But they don't want to sterilize the middle-class bourgeoisie people whose children totter into the swimming pool. And I'm telling you, there's really no difference in the state of mind. There's really no difference in the state of mind.
I just don't see how sterility...
No, wait, no, you don't...
I don't see how sterility is going to, punish them, because these people, look at the Steinberg case, they adopted illegally, and any of these people...
no, they didn't. I'm not sure that's true.
People can disappear, go to a different state, and get another child, and they are convicted of neglect, not of conceiving.
Yeah.
So I don't see how sterility is going to solve the problem. They can still get their hands on another child.
Punish anybody. It's to make sure that it doesn't happen again.
But once
and in
it
most
gets,
cases,
well,
it does
once it
do
gets
that.
into the plea bargaining system where people can bargain away body parts, do we lobotomize? Do we lobotomize white-collar criminals? Do we, like in the old Arabian days, cut off the hands of the thief?
Well, we don't let the government make the decision for them.
What good is a judge's sentence if it's not going to stick? Forget all this plea bargaining. And how do you two defendants feel when you go home at night? When you defending attorneys go home at night when you defend people that committed such brutal crimes?
I just want to say that the most noble thing any attorney can do is to represent someone in an unpopular cause, and I'm proud to have represented Melody Baldwin. The people like that are the ones that most need the protection of counsel.
Absolutely.
They're very vulnerable.
You're saying that the defendants are the ones who most need the counseling and the care. What about the kids?
No, the kids do too. But I'm saying within the criminal justice system, people that have mental difficulties and are indigent are very vulnerable, and they need protection of counsel.
You're not going to take away lawyers in court.
But that's another issue in that the court is willing to, the legislatures in all states are willing to build prisons, but the funding for mental health counseling is way down at the bottom, and so you can't sell prevention.
Yes.
I agree with Mr. Simpson. I don't believe that the state should be involved in this sort of decision, the decision of whether a person has
not?
I think that this is a personal statement that we're making, that the state is becoming too involved. There are too many wishy-washy in the middle decisions here that aren't being addressed at all.
Let me help you.
This audience is ready to sharpen the blade themselves.
I know, and I'm going to
But
jump
this
in my
goes to the
limo
core
when I
of a
leave.
person's identity. Goes to the core of a person's identity, whether to reproduce or not. And I'll make it easier for you. I don't think the state is smart enough to say who's fit to have children and who's not. I don't think we're ready for eugenics in this country. We just elected a president who says he wants a kinder, gentler America. I don't think we get to that point by neutering our children.
And
How about coming up some way of being, how about coming up with some way of being kinder and gentle to all the abused children in this world?
And we'll be back in just a moment.
Taking home whole wheat total? Special K. Hope you're hungry, because you'll need almost 3 boxes to equal the vitamin and mineral nutrition in just 1 box of Total. And you?
Just shredded wheat.
12 boxes. Total, 1 bowl, 100%. No other cereal has more vitamin and mineral nutrition. If it's whole wheat Total, it's Total Nutrition. And for a better cornflake, try Total Cornflakes. Better tasting and twice the nutrition of Kellogg's cornflakes.
Tender shrimp.
Scallops sound good.
How about calamari?
Fish. Definitely fish.
We heard you, and we've combined all your favorite seafood entrees in one great new dinner. Our brand new seafood platter, and all for just $9.95.
The Yum Yum Tree. We made all your favorites just for you.
Shock absorbers. Most of you know that worn-out shocks can really affect the ride and safe handling of the car. But did you know that worn shocks can also cause premature wear to your tires? Have your mechanic inspect those shocks and struts before problems occur. And don't forget, Napa shocks and struts come with a lifetime warranty. So, whether you do it yourself or have a professional install new shocks for you, ask for Napa.
Crank it up with Hawaiian Island Creations.
Just one of over 180 great stores.
Today on The Oprah Winfrey Show.
Everywhere I go, people are asking me, how did you lose all that weight? Well, to date, I've lost 67 pounds. You're looking right now at me the day I started this diet. That was July 7th, 132 days ago. And now, on November 15th, 67 pounds later, I'm going to tell you what I did, how I did it, how I lost the weight on the next Oprah Winfrey Show.
Oprah Winfrey, today at 4, only on TV2.
Started left to right again, Brian. We better bring you up to par here. Here are Michael Donahue and Judge Roy F. Jones. Mr. Donahue is the attorney for Donahoe. Well, I'll behave if you will, Michael. And for Melody Baldwin, whom we met a moment ago, Ms. Baldwin is the woman who was found guilty of gross criminal child neglect. She poisoned her own child, who did not survive. Then she got pregnant again. The judge suggested from the bench if she gets a tubal, maybe her sentence would be less. She got a tubal, and he dropped her sentence from 20 to 10 years. We saw a very confused young woman on the satellite just a moment ago who's now not sure that she did the right thing. She has surrendered her second baby for adoption. Now this gets more complicated. Garrett Simpson joins us. He's the public defender from the Public Defender's Office for Deborah Ann Forster, the Arizona woman who left 2 infants unattended for 3 days. They almost died. Those children not only survived, but have been since placed in other custody. And then she got pregnant again. Lori Scott is her probation officer. Do I have that right? Her parole officer. Probation officer. Lori, if I may be permitted to characterize her own commentary, is a little impatient with all this concern about civil liberties. She sees these kids out there who are not being given basic entitlements by their own parents, and the mother's pregnant again. Now, what kind of country do you want? Sharpen the old blade. We're going to start, you know what? Stand up here.
What's going to happen to the baby after it's born? Is it going to be given up for adoption?
Well, how can you say that? Because the lady is married to her husband, who's the father of the baby. And although the state might be able to, and I'm not an adoption lawyer, I don't know juvenile law, that's not my meat and potatoes, but the father's still going to have the right to custody of that child because he's the child's father.
They're still married.
They're still married.
And one of the terms of her probation...
Listen, Lori, go ahead.
One of the terms of her probation says she is not to have the care or custody of any minor child. So
do you take the child away from the father, who's not under the jurisdiction of the court?
Take the child away from the...
You took the child away from the father. He didn't do a right job the first time.
He's not been, you understand, he's not been charged or convicted of anything.
Hang on just a second. Yeah.
Phil, if the state or whoever it was knew that these children shouldn't have been left alone with their mother in the first place...
The state is not all-knowing.
The officer said that the mother was told or the father was told not to leave those children alone with their mother in the first place. Weren't they responsible also in a way?
Them. Part of the price we pay for living in a free society is that the child welfare protection system isn't triggered until there's a tragedy. And there's...
I was going to say, for Deborah Ann, why bother to have the child anyway if it's going to be taken out of her care? And also, having a child is not a right, it is a gift. And I think people that abuse that gift should be punished.
All right, but is it a gift from the state? Is that something you want? Is the state in charge of who reproduces? If that's the case, then we could tell black people, I'm sorry, you can't have children, you might carry sickle cell, or the Ashkenazi Jew, you can't have children, you may have Tay-Sachs. Do we want eugenics? Is the state someone who gives you the right to have children?
No.
It's not up to the state. I mean, this is a tough issue, and I'm
That's why we're here.
That's the problem.
I want to know why the father is not being charged. You said that when she has this baby, the father can decide what to do with it. He was there when these two children were abandoned. Why isn't he being charged also?
They were separated at the time, number one. I don't represent the father. He was never charged.
I'm angry like a lot of other people, I feel sure, in this room, and I like to be sympathetic, but I'll tell you, many of our laws need to be rewritten, and if the courts and the law enforcement people do not get tough on crime in this country, it's going to be the ruination of us, not wars and other problems we have. But we have got to get tough on crime, and child abuse is a tough amount of
Do you want to put... Let me try here.
All right, but the trouble...
So you want to put more people in jail?
I want worse than that. I think they deserve anything on the books.
You really want to... But we're beginning to sound like a little bit like the Nazi Germany, you know. Let's, wait a minute, off with their heads. It's got a kind of an uncivil... I thought we were this democracy. We're so proud, our civil liberty.
Civilized country in the world to have the crime rate we have.
I think that the problem is not in the criminals so much as recovery. Most of the criminals are coming from broken homes and problems. I think we need to work on recovering our criminals, working on therapy and counseling, rehabilitating.
Right,
that's right. And especially an 18-year-old woman, you're going to take away any chance of recovery?
But who was it up there that maybe it was you, Garrett? You can't, or Lori, you can't sell prevention.
Well, you can't sell prevention, and our prisons are overflowing. The court in this case was trying to be humane and say to Deborah, you haven't grown up yet, you're still a child. Let's buy some time for you. Maybe you can straighten out your life.
Absolutely. The judge in this case was not being a Nazi. She was just trying to do the right thing.
Now, I just want to make sure this audience does not go away confused. I understand your problem. This is confusing. There's a lot of balloons in the air here. Your client, Roscoe Brown, was convicted of rape along with two other men, a particularly brutal, heinous motel situation. One woman victimized. The judge threw the book at him, gave him, what, 30 years?
30 years.
30 years, and said, if you get castrated, I'll let you go.
Right.
Your client, after going to prison, said, okay, I don't like it here.
Which they always will.
Me.
They always will. They almost always will. Give him a choice.
Where is this now? Now, what's going on here?
He's doing his time. The Supreme Court shot down the castration part of it. They resentenced him to 30 years.
Which Supreme Court?
State. South Carolina.
So the South Carolina, wait a minute. The South Carolina Supreme Court said no.
Said no.
Are you going to kick this upstairs? You
Already
think?
is.
It is?
Federal court.
Had they granted federal court?
Federal court. Still pending.
You have to go through appeals before you get to the Supreme Court.
Right. Right.
The federal court's agreed to hear it.
So far, to test whether this option can be enforced.
So in other words, America's jurisprudence system is now struggling with how much power we'd like to give Judge Jones and his colleagues on these matters. So,
exactly.
How much power do you want them to have? And we'll be back in just a moment.
What's the hottest gift for men this year? We went to the experts to find out.
The minute I saw it, it was like, this is perfect for Steve. I thought it was funny, so I know my husband will.
My brother's gonna freak when he sees I got it for him.
Oh, my boys will love it if their father doesn't hog it.
These women have already discovered the hottest gift for men this Christmas. It's a hilarious video cassette presented by Sports Illustrated. The very best of the football follies. 44 fun-filled minutes of some of the all-time craziest football bloopers ever. It's sure to make any sports fan happy this Christmas. These critics agree.
He can watch that kind of stuff over and over again. The bloopers, the fumbles, he really likes it.
Oh, it's just bodies colliding all over the place. It's perfect for them.
He'll invite the guys over, and they'll watch it about 100 times. Where'd I buy it? I got him a subscription to Sports Illustrated, and it comes with it, free.
That's right. You get the very best of the football follies free with your paid gift subscription to Sports Illustrated.
Easiest Christmas shopping I've ever done.
Call their toll-free Christmas hotline now and get in on the hottest gift around. The free video and a full year of SI at a low Christmas sale price, only 99 cents per issue. That's over 55% off the cover price.
They even have it on sale before Christmas.
He'll enjoy 55 big issues, including the year in sports, the baseball preview, the basketball preview, the football spectacular.
That's all he thinks about, football.
The Sportsman of the Year, and the one and only 25th anniversary swimsuit issue.
Oh, my, that is something.
Personally, I would love Sports Illustrated this Christmas, and I hope my girlfriend Kelly is watching. Thank you. Boyfriends, husbands, fathers, brothers is perfect for any man. There's even a card for under the tree. A full year of Sports Illustrated for only 99 cents per issue. You won't be billed till next year. The first issue even comes gift wrapped. Save over 55% and get the videotape free. Call 1-800-876-5444.
No sizes, no hassles in the store. All our Christmas shopping should be that easy. He won't see this Philly. Oh, honey, Merry Christmas!
I'm glad you waited. Go ahead. Hi.
Hi. I'm a mother that was charged with neglect. And I would like to say that I think people should listen to the cases a little bit more clearly and in a little bit more detail before passing judgment.
You don't think you were guilty?
Absolutely not.
Just very briefly, what happened?
Okay, what happened was...
I don't have much time.
Okay, I work at night, and I was having trouble with babysitting.
Right.
And I called Albany, Child Protection Agency in Albany, trying to get low-cost daycare for my child during the day.
Right.
Over the summer while she wasn't in school.
Right.
Well, I was having a hard time getting people to contact me and everything, and what happened one morning is I fell asleep. My daughter and a little boy got a hold of a lighter, and the little boy set my daughter's shirt on fire. Naturally, we were rushed to the hospital, and everything was taken care of medically.
Were you charged?
Yes, I was charged with neglect.
And you didn't go to prison?
Yeah, absolutely not. No, it didn't go to court, but social services, I have a social services record.
I think it's a very good point. What is child neglect? And if you're working 7 to 11, and the babysitter doesn't show up, and you've got kids, and you haven't heard from him, and he doesn't send you any checks, who's guilty? You can't castrate society.
No, you can't, but there are all kinds of preventative things that can be done. There's all kinds of education, and nobody's talking about causes. Only one woman over there was brave enough...
Well, but this, at least we have one attorney at law up here who's merely, he's suggesting...
But not from the audience.
Well, I don't know where we get these audiences. Listen to this now. This woman, he's saying in this Orwellian world we let loose here with this, cut him off. This woman might be forced to have a tubal under the circumstances of her very complicated situation in which...
And there'd be no choice for her. She'd be in court. There's no choice in court.
There's no choice. You're part of the product at that point.
Part of the plea
Tom
bargaining
Wolfe
system
called the
should take
child. that gets fed into the machine.
Yeah. Let me give the judge here with not much time left. We're talking about you, Judge. Why don't you give us your best wisdom? Now, I know you're obviously a man in good standing, so we're not asking you to break the law here, but what would you like to see?
I'd like for society to become alarmed at what is occurring in this country today. The rampant child abuse and neglect that is going on, and let's find some answers to that. All we do is sit around and worry about the rights of defendants. Let's start worrying about the rights of children.
Caffrey toothpaste decaffeinates your smile.
Coffee and tea can stain your smile.